Well, to give us his view on the midterm budget speech, I'm joined now by Daniel Silke. He's a political analyst. Thank you very much, Daniel, for joining us. Of course, the midterm budget, we do expect so much from it, but it rarely, gives us a lot of detail. But what are some of the key takeaways that you took from the speech this afternoon?
Yes, hi, thanks for having me. Yeah, you're right. We do expect a lot from it, and I frankly think we expect too much from it. It really is more of an exercise to set the scene, to provide some updated figures 6-7 months after the main budget. So I didn't really expect too much from it, and frankly, there wasn't too much in this. This was really, I think, just a recent review of the post-COVID environment in particular. It was an opportunity for the new minister to perhaps get comfortable, to send the markets an indication that there's continuity from the previous minister, Mboweni. But ultimately, there was very little coming out of this budget that I think addressed to address the many serious issues facing the country. The can was kicked down the road effectively until the major budget in March next year. And we're going to have to wait on issues such as the basic income grant, on issues such as revenue, taxes. All of those issues really are somewhat unresolved, and it looks like they're unresolved within Cabinet and from a policy point of view as well.
Coming to the issue that's, really giving us problems right now in South Africa, that of energy supply, he did talk about no longer really focusing that much on Eskom as an entity and rather focusing on ensuring that they create an environment for energy generation, never mind whether it's with Eskom. What did you get from that? And also, like you say, you don't get a sense of urgency because he was telling us about things we know already in terms of the REAP that has been put out and the round 5 that we're expecting energy to come from. And even that is going to happen in a while to come.
Yes, I also didn't feel there was sufficient energy, at least urgency to the matter. Look, the big issue to me for Eskom continues to be the Eskom's accounting woes, and we've seen that discussed in the Parliamentary Standing Committee just over the last 2 days or so. Now, this goes to the heart of many of government's fiscal problems and expenditure problems, the dismal state of its finances and the inability of state-owned enterprises to adequately manage their own finances. Procurement issues being forefront amongst those. Now, I don't expect the Minister of Finance necessarily to address these issues or to have the answers, but I just didn't feel there was enough of sort of the riot act being read about this. What he did say, though, was that there would be no further bailouts. Now, let's hope he keeps to that, because ultimately markets will be looking at that as a key sign of stability going forward. He did make that point quite clearly. On the Eskom side, in more general terms, look, we need a green power deal for South Africa desperately. There are gatekeepers currently who wish to keep coal on the front burner. South Africa is not the only country, by the way, that's battling with this issue to wean itself off coal. But nevertheless, it's an impediment to us from an electricity production point of view and from a climate change and green energy point of view as well. I would have liked the minister to have dealt perhaps at least in terms of broad brushstrokes on this issue. But once again, it just looked to me as though there were so many issues that hadn't been properly networked within government, so many key policy points that could have been mentioned that somehow were just sort of glossed over or kicked down the road. This merely was perhaps a signal that the economy is in reasonable hands with a Minister of Finance who's not going to differ that much from the previous person.
Yeah, talking about differing from his predecessor, I think what was a little bit different was his language around SOEs. His predecessor would often throw out questions about the necessity of having certain state-owned entities, and that's a conversation that needed to be had. But he was talking more about tough love and, taking a stance that there needs to be a consolidation of some SOEs or even getting rid of those that are deemed not needed. Did you feel that there was that shift, and do you think that's a positive move?
Well, certainly, the language used was a little different to Tito Mboweni, who often used more colourful language to identify his displeasure with some of the state-owned entities. It was a little bit more guarded from Minister Gononwana, but he did make the point, and he made the point repeatedly, that these state-owned entities have to be judged on whether they are really necessary, whether they really do provide a function. That's not that dissimilar to what Tito Mboweni said, but he wasn't prepared to flesh it out to any greater degree. The issue of the debt of so many of them. When you look at Daniel, when you look at the additional funds that have to go, certainly potentially to Eskom over the years still to come, and even South African Airways, of course, not mentioned here because it's just sort of, in a rebranded state. But all of these question marks very much remain. I think this minister is equally concerned about the drain that SOEs are on South Africa, and he's mentioned the point before that this drain affects delivery to the poor. It takes money away from the poor. So he did very much emphasize that. But whether government really has the ability to exert its influence within these SOEs to reinvigorate them, or whether it has the political will internally within the broader ANC alliance to really look at a greater degree of privatization or public-private mixes for some of them, that has to be seen, and there was very little indication on that.
Daniel, we're going to leave it there, but thank you very much for your time, sir. That was Daniel Silke. He's a political and economy analyst.